Hey there, rulers! Welcome back after a long week of Force of Will to the Teacher's Lounge, your favorite ever live Force of Will podcast featuring myself, Jeremy Franklin, still in my old house, and I'm joined as always by Ryan Miles, now in his new house.
Yay!
This is all I got. Just pew, pew, pew.
Yeah, I got
Just finger pistols today.
Josh Patton.
No words.
Cracking packs.
Cracking Ghost in the Shell packs over there. If you pull the secret rare, let us know. And
Josh,
you'll know.
Joining us is also Mike Rance.
Can we just from now on refer to Josh as Josh Crack and Patton? I couldn't even do it in my head. Yeah, Crack and Patton.
If you can
Pack,
say it
crack,
5
and
times
Patton.
fast, you
Yeah,
can.
there we go.
Pack,
That's what I want.
Crackin', Patton. Good old
Pack,
PC.
cracking Patton.
Good old PCP over here.
Oh boy.
Family show, Jeremy. God, don't talk about PCP.
oh boy.
That stands for, in the mental health world, that stands for person-centered planning. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's not my world.
Anyway, so before we get started, as always, we're so happy to have you all join us here tonight. We're looking forward to it. As always, if you like what we're doing and you want to support us, go ahead and click that join button down below to become a member here on Ruler School. It gets you access to all kinds of cool perks, as well as being access to our chats for our live streams, which gets you the emojis, which gets you the badge by your name. And joining as a member on the channel is the easiest and most effective way to support what we do financially. A $2 a month membership is equivalent to about watching about 200, somewhere between 200 and 300 videos in terms of what we will generate, because we don't put more than one ad on a video like some other YouTubers do. Because that
Sounds like a mistake.
Well, oh well. So with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Tonight, we are talking about some things that the community asked us to talk about. Specifically, we're getting a little meta in talking about what are some of our favorite, most hypest Force of Will moments are. Especially, it's always kind of fun to think back about these kinds of things. One, during a time like now, but also like right after a set drops when we're like looking at new cards and everything else, like that flush of like excitement is there. And so it's kind of cool to look back on those kinds of things. And then we're also going to be chatting about how getting in and staying into Force of Will now is a very different venture than it was in the past. So we're going to be talking about how those things have changed a little bit, and then what are some of the things that you can do to best keep yourself in the game or help get new players into the game in the most effective way with that new world. So let's go ahead and start off with some hype memories. Who's got some, like, outside of, we're not talking like specific metas, we're not talking about specific cards or anything, but like in your Force of Will history, one, how long have you been playing? I know we've said this before, but it's easy to get started that way. And like, what has been some of your like favorite, like I'd say top two like favorite memories or experiences that you've been able to get while you've been here on the channel? We'll start with Mike, and I encourage everybody in the chat to let us know what yours are at the same time as we're going through this. We'd love to read them on live. Mike?
And you gave the guy with the least amount of prep time the immediate start, but you know what? That's fine though.
Keep you on your toes, buddy.
Because I have one of my favorite memories. So in 2018, first and only time I ever went to Worlds, which was probably one of the hypest moments in my Force of Will career, because it's my first time overseas. I got to meet a whole bunch of people. I got to just hang out with a bunch of friends. I got plastered drunk at the players meeting the night before the tournament, which obviously, hindsight for my playing wasn't very good, but it was really fun. But best moment, I did okay in the tournament. I ended up, Tasman, who got, I think, the 15th or 16th place. So, give or take some of that. But the next day, when everybody was just kind of goofing off after I got trounced by Ryan in round 2 of the day 2 event, that's him. That's that guy. I don't even know where he is on this. I decided to just showcase a little bit of Wanderer stuff that I brought, because, I like Wanderer. It's a good format. It's a lot of fun. But it was also the time when Gretel was still not banned. So Joey Pitchon and I decided to just show off Brunhild World with Einherjar summon into Gretel, into the ramp up, into the stupid Alice's World turns. And we were playing against, I remember, Roman Stark, John Paul, and I think Lars were the three that we were playing against. And all I remember was them going like, "Oh, this is broken. This is so good. This is crazy. I cannot believe this." Just it was the best moment. We all had such a good time.
Dude,
And
that
then, like-
accent is like on. It is absolutely
Just
on
Roman, yeah.
for Roman.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was pretty solid.
Roman has messaged me at like 4 a.m. his time to discuss cards. I
a
will
lot like
know
him.
that man's voice anyway. But no, so that was just like, I don't know. It's really good memories of Japan. It's good memories of hanging out with people, meeting a bunch of guys that I hadn't met before, meeting people from countries I'd never been to, going to a country I'd never been to. I don't know. It was just a wholesome time. It was a lot of fun. I don't know. I want to go back to Japan. I want to see everybody, and I hope that I can get an invite to Worlds so I can destroy Ryan finally and get my revenge. So I can pretend like I'm good at this game sometimes.
Yeah, Ryan's probably just not going to play and commentate because he's got the nerves. He's talked about that before.
I'm retired from Forceful. I just want to talk about other people playing. I've done it all.
Yep, just going to commentate.
My heart can't take it anymore.
Go out on a high note, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. It's only downhill from here.
It's only downhill from here.
Like,
Well,
hold on,
speaking
let's talk about this. You really don't have the desire to be the first one to go back to back.
Oh yeah, no, I'm going to.
I mean,
like,
yeah.
the idea of me playing on an event is like, man, I don't really want to. And then the idea of
But
somebody
why?
else winning is like, oh, I can't let that happen either. So I mean, it's really
So it's
the
the
Ryan's
laziness of being a
spikiness.
jerk.
Ryan's spikiness comes out as soon as you mention the concept of someone else potentially winning.
yeah. It's I got to preserve the ego. I guess like the thing is, like, when I'm like playing a tournament and like that like 12-hour period between finishing day 1 and like starting day 2, like the amount of like focus I have to like rein in on myself to make sure that I'm not like overthinking just things that I have no control over. Like the cards are gonna come how they come the next day. And like that time period of looking at the matchup and saying, okay, what's my worst case? What's my best case? What am I trying to see? How am I going to mulligan? Like, how do I possibly lose this matchup? How do I lose this matchup and look like an idiot doing it? Just like all of that night before bullshit gets in my head a lot, and I hate it. And Worlds was the worst for it. Going into the finals and playing the finals when I was just misplaying on stream, and I'm like, I am just tilting off the face of the planet. That's
But you didn't have your brother with you either, right? Like you time with Jeremy and the Rogues Guild and all that, but like your main support group in like Force of Will wasn't with you this time at Worlds, right?
I had texted him before like day 1, but yeah, I wouldn't say he's like super my support group.
Well, I mean, I'm not even just saying him.
Yeah.
I'm like going even further than that. I think like so like
my crew's not there, sure, yeah.
Yeah, like your 2018 Worlds experience, the teams that you've played on, these groups, like it was a whole different experience for you there. So
yeah, I would say so. I'm just in the house with Jeremy and Derek and Cal and Steven and the other Steven and just like a whole bunch of Rogues Guild guys basically with Hulsheiser also in top 8. And I'm like, you guys go test. I have to play against IU, and then who knows what I'm playing against. And I just should beat IU. So,
anything's possible.
yeah. And then IU ended up being like the closest match out of all 3 of them. Like the IU matchup was. I wish that was streamed because God, I played way better versus
the plan
IU.
for the IU matchup is to toss dice at the wall and see where it lands, and if it lands on the right number, then you're fine.
I lost game 1 against IU, and I was like, oh Jesus Christ.
You are.
And then he won game 2 and 3, and that's all that mattered.
Honestly, the Worlds I won was probably like my number 3 favorite Worlds. I was gonna.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you that. Like, it wasn't your favorite Worlds, was it?
2018 was number 2, and for all the reasons that Mike just kind of talked about, we had a shit ton of Americans, we had all the Germans, we had everyone. We had everyone there. It was just a great.
I got to meet
people.
Naoyuki.
Yeah,
Naoyuki's great. Oh, that guy's the best.
Yada's
Brother
fantastic.
won in 2017, right?
No, 2016, and that's my favorite because that was like the time where Team Outer World, back in our glory days, where you had the Miles brothers on it, was like you had this season where like this is the first season that I ever like did anything ever. Like I was good at some MOBAs back in the day, but like I started playing Force of Will as like I've played card games before and I've been mostly good at them. I'll try and be mostly good at this game. Oh look, I won a Grand Prix. That was really, really cool. This is like I'm having a blast in this game. Oh look, my brother won a Grand Prix. Now we're like many popular people in this community, and this is really neat. And now we're forming a team, we're winning everything, and then we go to Worlds with this like huge ego behind it, saying that we're the best team in America, and we put 3 people in top 8.
It up.
Yeah, we put 3 people in top 8. We had, I think, 5 Americans in top 8, and then we win the whole thing with my brother doing it. And then I win the day 2 event, and it's like he wins the main event, I win the day 2 event, and that's just like that. I mean, the rest, it all comes from there, right? Who I am today stems from that moment.
That picture of you guys holding Aaron on your shoulders and just like propping up is still like one of my favorite things I've ever seen.
Honestly, I like the live footage of him like coming around the table, like Ryan in excitement, like coming around the table and just like that's kind of emotion.
That's why I made sure. That's why I made sure this year, as soon as he had actually won, I ran over and gave him a big hug, because he did the same thing to Aaron, and Aaron wasn't there to give him a big hug. So I was like, buddy, give you a big hug.
Surrogate brother.
I mean, that kind of excitement and stuff, that kind of like passion, like it comes out really naturally in a lot of physical sports. You know, with the adrenaline kind of already like for the most part flowing through the physical activity and all of that, and then it's just more acceptable there. Like I don't see that a lot in card games, and like
if you're not getting an emotional like visceral response from somebody doing something hyping a card game, you're doing it wrong. Like,
I will say that is one thing Yu-Gi-Oh players actually do super well. Like when you have
they hype the shit.
Yeah, when you're like a Magic Grand Prix and there's a bunch of people around the table and it's like, oh, golf clap, yeah, that's such a good play. Oh man, so amazing.
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh people are like, yo, he's just top deck, report Tengu. No, like that's right.
Why are you going crazy over top decking report Tengu?
Because you get the synchro summoning to go your guardian, bro. What you talk about?
Like, the opposite of what you want a top deck.
Yu-Gi-Oh players will like go off when something happens in a game, and they'll jump off, they'll get hyped, and like when someone wins, they'll like pick up their bro, put them on. Like that's just
the pop-offs, man.
See, I love that.
Pop-offs are all over the place in Yu-Gi-Oh, and that's where I come from. So that's the culture I bring with me to Force of Will. I think I'm the only one doing that, but I'm not gonna let it stop me.
It should absolutely exist. That kind of excitement. Like I love seeing it, and I loved absolutely like when I saw like the recap videos of Worlds and everything. That was like an awesome experience, and so.
Yeah. So Josh, what about you? What have been your kind of hypest moments?
I mean, honestly, I thoroughly enjoy the travel. I absolutely enjoy the travel. I like to get into my car, and I've traveled solo, and I've traveled like with people, and I like either. Like my car rides when I'm with people, a lot more talkative, very casual. But like when it's just me, like I'm playing, like I've thought about doing a TikTok of like me in the car going to an event and me in a car coming from an event. And like, it's literally like a hard rock metal on the way there. And it's like K-pop on the way back.
Can you just meet in the middle and just play baby metal?
No, I do. I have a baby metal. I have a baby metal Pandora. But like, on the way there, like I do not go from this, like this, my elbows on the little armrest, and I'm just staring out at the road for like 5 hours thinking about everything.
Thinking about what deck you're going to play because you haven't picked it because it's not the night before. I understand. Yes. And
Ryan, contrary to popular belief, not everyone does that.
Oh, that's crazy. I mean, the one event that I went to with Josh, not only did he pick his deck the night before, so strike one. Number two, I got to see him after the event because we all went out to a bar and just karaoke Taylor Swift. So it's not K-pop, but it's too Taylor Swift.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, we were listening to Taylor Swift on the way up. And see, that's what I mean. That's the difference between people being in the car with you and like you just kind of like I couldn't just zone out and let like my 2 passengers just like stare at me, not talking to them for 5 hours on our way to Canada. But like, honestly, like just the travel and then like the whole experience, like when you're away for the weekend, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you leave with uncertainty on how the weekend is going to go, what kind of results are going to come about, the work that you've kind of put into it. And like, you just hope that like on your way home, you've got something to show for it. Right. And so the whole weekend is just like an awesome experience where, you get there, you get everything prepped, and then like the tournament like that, I can't tell you, like, it doesn't matter. I don't care if I'm playing against a nobody or like the best of the best. Like, it is game one. I have the shakes. Game one.
Oh yeah.
And then once I get that first win, I feel untouchable. At that point,
You ride
again,
the high.
I don't care who I'm playing against. Like, we're 1-0 and we're going undefeated from here on. Like, that's just the way that it is, right? And just carrying that kind of adrenaline for the whole time feels awesome. And then, like, when you're done, you've made top cut, or you haven't made top cut, like the dinner after day one,
man.
With the boys
is like, it's awesome. I haven't missed a dinner yet. And so, like, when I was
mozzarella stick appetizer with the 2 for $22. Let's go.
okay, so I'm more on like trying new places.
Yeah.
or, like,
I know, but also like if there's an Applebee's nearby and you're
like, I'm
tired,
just not going to Applebee's. I will say I have caved and went to B-dubs more than I probably should.
Oh my
That's
gosh,
not a
yes.
cave. That's not a cave.
Have you gone with? No, it is like it's absolutely.
It is a
cave.
cave.
It's absolutely a cave.
Specifically, my brother for like an entire year, every event we went to after the thing, it's like, hey, you want to go to B-dubs? And I'm like,
That was
what if
literally
what if we went to this other place that's only in this state that we've never been to before? He's like, yeah, but B-dubs. And I'm like,
yeah.
no,
yeah.
all right, let's take a vote. Everyone votes B-dubs, and I'm like,
Like, I'm at National for
Welcome.
ARG, and then all of a sudden, like we're like, yeah, dinner plans, and I'm like, cool, this is it. This is gonna be like my second, like third Force of Will dinner. Like, I made it. I'm going out with like Aaron. He's like, how about B-dubs? And I'm like, all right.
I do wanna pause real quick because I do believe we have a new
It's like
member.
45 minutes away.
We have a new member who just joined us, and I believe it's Billy Buttons.
it is Billy.
Billy Buttons! Whoa!
Billy.
Can we get some
Welcome back,
Keurig
buddy.
flexes in the chat? Hold on, we gotta get some
Can we get
Val
just
flexes.
regular ass flexes?
Get some Val flexes in the chat for Billy Buttons. Thank you, buddy. Good to have you
Thank
here.
you, Billy Buttons.
All we had to do to get Billy in here was talk about 2018 Worlds. Who'd have thought?
That's all
Oh my
it takes.
God.
That's all it takes. So actually, for me, in the same vein as like the traveling, I kind of have like a hype moment, and all of them kind of have to do with like cementing of identity, if that makes sense. Because there we go. Because for me, coming from the card games that I did, I never, in my opinion, I felt like I never stood out as a person, like in those card game communities. I was just someone who plays it. I wasn't never really successful. I was never whatever. And so it always felt kind of weird. And I've talked about this with I've talked about this with Brandon. I've talked about this with Ryan. Like, there have been times where in the people that I've met, it's been like, do these people actually like me as a person? Or is it just like, am I the butt of some joke, right? Like, there's that insecurity about it. And I think my hypest moments have been where the community has shown me that it's real. I think the first instance of this would have been Montreal at Hook form or Spinning Miss Priscilla, like when Jack Giant Priscilla came out. That was, I felt like, the first time that I really got to hang out with like Ryan and Aaron and stuff like that. And like we went out to breakfast in Montreal that morning.
God.
We went out to breakfast in Montreal, and we took forever to find a place, but then we found this really nice place, and like we all sat down, and we had like a really good time, and people were like actively talking to me, and like, you know, were chatting about everything else, and like telling me that they were they couldn't wait to see me next time, and like all this stuff, and it felt like, oh, right, these people actually like me. Like that was a real moment for me. Like, this community isn't just like, oh, we're all card game players and we're nice to each other, but it's like, no, we're actually all friends here. It's like, that to me was a really big hype. And then Canada is involved in a lot of them.
Dude, Canada is an awesome place. Like, if you have not played Force of Will in Canada,
go
Yeah,
play
you
Force
got
of Will
it.
in Canada.
Yeah, you do, absolutely.
The event I was talking about with Josh was in Canada. Like, everything just good happens in Canada.
That season, the end of that season was when I played in Toronto, and I got my invite back to Worlds. And the first time I got the invite to Worlds was when there was like more invites per event. And so because of how everything had worked out at that event, it felt like I hadn't really purely on my own merit earned that invite to Worlds. Like, there was some other stuff that had played around with it that got me the invite. And Toronto that year, as a player, felt like I myself earned my spot to go to Japan. And so like that to me was really, really hype. Because like no one else, I mean, Jeremiah, my teammate, I got paired up with him in the last round and like he conceded there, but he already had his invite at that point. But like to get to there, I had won every round. I played against my only loss of the tournament in top 8, who was Aaron.
Mhm.
And there was a moment where playing against Aaron in top 8, I thought he was sandbagging me to like just like not concede automatically, because at that point he had his paid invite already, not to concede automatically, but to just like not play. So then like I
had a
win.
feeling Ryan was doing the same thing.
But then later Victor Harris comes up to me and he's like, so I saw Aaron's hand, like he was not sandbagging you at all, like you absolutely earned that win. It's like, okay, cool, that makes me feel good, right? That's a hype moment for me. And then I think this past year's Worlds, not the tournament itself, but the house. Because that to me was the first time at Worlds that like I wasn't a chaperone to anyone. Like I was just like in Japan with a bunch of people having a good time, and so like to me that was the most hype there. And I think
I believe that Australian Alex might beg to differ, but continue.
he had a very different experience than me, and we're not going to talk about it. But like,
Touchy subject.
I think a lot of the times that my hypest moments in this game have always been when my beliefs about what the community is and what the game is prove themselves to be right. Like that people really do care about each other, that people are really going to have a good time. Like you can really have a good time, not just playing this card game, but like even after a day of losing or the day of not being very successful, you can still have an absolute blast, like going out to the dinners and everything else. Like it's the things that I get the most hype about in this game. Yes, there's a little bit about the game itself, but so much of what I get hyped for is the community that's part of playing the game.
I don't think any of us had a moment where it was like, I was in this game and it was turn 6 and I knew that he had this. We're all talking about just, oh, this event was really cool. Here are the people I hung out with. Oh, this event was really cool. Here are the people I hung out with. Like that's pretty much all 4 of us unanimously just like the people are what make this game.
Yeah.
And,
Dude, and like, you want to like we already kind of talked about him for a minute, but like Rome, like so like I did a GP. I did a GP in Italy. And I've gone on record and I've said this many times. The Germans were the nicest to me in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like a complete foreigner there. I had no reputation. Nobody knew who I was. I was solo, no teammates, and like nobody welcomed me except for Roman and his group. And I was like,
Roman Stark.
I was like, dude, like, and then the same thing. Like, ended up we were staying at the same hotel. We went out to dinner together. I was at the German, not at a B-dubs. It was actually some kind of weird American style of restaurant. It didn't feel
B-dubs.
Italian at all.
Something can only get there.
But yeah, it's amazing. Like even my overseas tournament that I have I had the exact same experience that I have here.
Our half our story is just Roman Stark is great.
Yeah, I mean, my run was going to be 2018 Worlds when we went to this place called Jumanji, which was just like $10 all you can drink, and that place was not ready for Americans and Germans. Oh my god!
I also have a good memory with Roman trying to play Liar's Dice when that man was like absolutely wasted and he's very bad at it and has no voice, and it's just like, buddy, you're not very good at this game. Like he's just like slamming the calls and everything else down to 1 die, and he's just like, he's talking like, let's go.
Oh, that was when he had the voice. Oh my god!
I was like, Roman, chill out, buddy. Like it's gonna be okay. Like good people. But like,
I think the main thing I'm upset about Worlds being moved to a new venue. It's in Osaka now. I think it's in Osaka this year. No, it's that one room, the upstairs room outside of the tournament venue, where I've just got so many memories there. Where it's all that after school bullshit. It's like just waiting out there for pairings. There's so many memories in that room, and I don't know when I'll ever be back. And also, like one of my favorite food spots in Japan, and this is
the bakery.
I don't know. No, I don't know the name of this place. I don't know how to find this place.
The little shop with like the katsudon and the ramen and everything over by like the tournament, like right by the hotel.
Yes, he can tell you that it's near the Players Hotel from the first couple worlds.
Close.
Only Billy Buttons really knows how to find it. And
Billy!
And it's just like, I don't know the name of this place. I can't find it. I need to bring Billy with me to Japan, bring him to the tournament venue that Worlds was at, and then he knows how many train stops and in which direction to go to get there. And that's it. Oh, that's the only way to find this place.
Wait, I might think of a different one then.
It's just no, it's katsudon. It's like it's a whole bunch of like just random like $3 dishes that they keep bringing you, and it's got a freaking mug the size of my face of beer for like $4. And that's where Mike Aguilar took me there the first night we were in. The best dish there is a salad with like literal just lettuce and shrimp with mayonnaise. That's the best dish there. Why is it good? I don't know. Would I ever eat that in America? Not on my fucking life. But
on that weird note, we're gonna transition. I'm sure we can all.
Let's go.
We can all share stories. So we just had as our good friend Pack Kraken Patton over there is doing. We just had
that's catchy. I like it. Let's keep doing it.
5 times fast, guys. We gotta say it 5 times fast. Otherwise,
pass. We do have another box. Here we go.
You got 2 more after.
So we just had a set release. We have another set coming out later this month. And
yeah, it was called the Rising Tides, I think. We got Twisted Fate, we got Gangplank, we got Vibe.
Stop talking about Runeterra. Stop it. This is a Force of Will.
Sorry.
Force of Will now, in terms of purchasing product, in terms of getting into the game, is a very different experience than it has been from the beginning. I know that I'm the earliest player in this group of people. In the beginning, there were no starter decks. It was buy packs, hope to pull rulers, 4 rulers per box, 10 rulers per set, or 5 rulers per set, 2 rulers per box. And it was just
Hold on. I've actually never thought about this, but it's only now occurring to me when you say it out loud that there were just no structure decks in Grim Cluster.
No structure decks in Grim Cluster.
How the ever-loving hell were we pulling 250-man tournaments when there was no structure decks?
People buying boxes, dude.
What?
Yeah, do you remember how much Grim was printed?
There was a lot of boxes.
I started playing when the SKL structure decks came out. So I wasn't like SKL wasn't out yet, but I was still like in the Bahamut Leviathan era was my first.
Grim Cluster was 100% box purchasing. That was what you
How
did.
much did your Bahamut cost?
350 people. It cost me like $2. Like I built a whole deck for like $80 to go place 9th of the 350-man tournament. How the hell do we pull 350 people when there were no structure decks?
Because people
as a
bought
new
boxes.
card game.
Because people bought boxes.
I will say that back then, like when I first got into the game, we had 3 local stores here that were all doing Force of Will, and one of them was doing singles. So like,
yeah, that was the other thing.
The environment was different.
The environment was a lot more flooded as it was before. But anyway, that was back at the game. We have now gone to. We had structure decks starting with Alice Cluster, and we got booster boxes. Booster boxes still after the starter decks had rulers in them, and then they transitioned to Lapis Cluster, which was the same way. I'm trying to remember if Lapis Cluster had starter decks.
Yep. 5 starter decks.
Yes, it did. It had the 5 starter decks. It had the 5 starter decks and the 5 rulers. We still had rulers per box. Like, we still had rulers in every set. Like, we had that same kind of mechanic. And then we start to hit Rhea Cluster. Rhea Cluster hit us with the weird, like, reprinting sealed items, everything else. But we still had starter decks, everything else. And then we got to Valhalla, which was the still getting... we lost rulers in the start... we lost rulers in the boxes, and we only had the starter decks, which was now 2 rulers per starter deck. And now we're into Alice Origins, which we're getting a blend of more spread out starter decks. Now we have this 3rd set AO3 is once again buy a box rulers in the set, like box stopper rulers, but we're back to no starters. So we've had this kind of like weird wave, right? And along with that wave, we've had these rises and falls of stores being interested. We also have had a change in how much is printed. I think in the beginning of Grim, it was let's flood it, because we want to get the game out there. We want as many people as possible to get their hands on it. And then, the business model changed and everything else. And now it's kind of been print to supply or print to demand and a little bit extra. And then, I think now it definitely feels like with the Alice Origins, the boxes are kind of in the same way, but the starters are maybe printed a little bit more flooded. I know a lot of people, like I've seen a lot of messaging from a lot of the different distributors saying that like they have starters. Like starters are a little bit easier to get than the set itself.
So I'm actually surprised about considering that they're smaller boxes now.
So I don't necessarily think that I don't necessarily think that boosters are like not being printed as much. I just think that like maybe like almost like here's demand, here's box printing above that demand, here's starter printing above the box demand a little bit.
Interesting question. What set do you guys think was the biggest turning point between oversaturation and undersaturation in Force of Will?
DBV.
Was it really DBV?
Absolutely. It was as soon as the new company took over.
Because I'm also thinking back when like LEL got felt shorter printed than everything else.
Okay,
I don't think LEL was a true short printing though.
It wasn't a true short print. I remember that there were cards that were harder to get out of it.
LEL was just like everyone wanted.
It was
every
demand.
It
was demand, not supply.
I mean, it had Lumia, it had Fox, it had probably a third really good ruler. I can't remember because of how good Lumia and Fox were.
It also had like good
Valentina.
No, Valentina, because she was like
Blue
winning
Black.
Grand Prix.
Yeah, Blue Black Valentina. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
but it was essentially there was the three sets where we had a spike in demand when really like there was no change in player base. It was just a spike in demand, and that was LEL, Vingolf 3, and Time Spinning Witch.
It was really Time Spinning Witch over 80k? Because I remember 80k was harder to get.
Because there were only two rulers in that set.
80k boxes were not hard to get. And that's essentially where we're talking about here. We're talking about sealed boxes.
Yeah.
Makes sense. The secondary market on 80k was tougher.
Yeah, 80k, and you could still buy 80k boxes. People are buying 80k boxes for $35.
Is this now a finance podcast? I'm not sure I'm qualified. Do I need to call Emilio?
No, but what I want to specifically talk about is with the change in everything in the terms of changing on how we lost.
It's a finance podcast.
Finance.
Everybody's dropping. What's happening? Stop leaving.
I left because I thought I was being funny, but who knows? Maybe the joke landed.
So
my Discord just died.
I think the thing is to talk about how getting the word to get the products that you want, getting new players product that they want, and staying in Force of Will is a different game than it was in the past. At the beginning of the game, like Josh said, it was very easy to acquire product. It was very easy to get what you needed. There were a lot of stores cracking singles. Like the game was in a position where that was what had happened, right? And then throughout Force of Will's history, we've also had like people who would just pick up starter decks and then not buy packs, or like buy pack one at a time. And so not necessarily the huge like buy a box market. Like you kind of had a lot of freedom back in the early days in terms of how do you want to buy product? Okay, you can buy product that way. And then we've had some spikes where, like we talked about, how it's a same player base, but there's a rise in demand, at which point in time you can still probably, for some products, have to kind of hunt a little bit harder for what you want, but you can still mostly buy products the way you want to. And I think that New Valhalla into this cluster, I think this cluster has solved some of the problem that we had with New Valhalla, particularly regarding the starter decks and the acquisition of rulers. But as a whole, I would like to hear your opinions in terms of the approach to acquiring product, the strategy to acquiring product, and how you have to think about acquiring product in this day and age is different than way back and before, and maybe some things to be considerate of as that moves forward. Because I think that what we're seeing is, I do notice in the community there is kind of this butting of heads, almost a sense, that there is a portion of the community who has kind of really adapted to the fact of like, okay, we really do need to be super communicative to our stores. We really do need to be committing in advance. We got to like plan our purchases. Like we really got to be more mindful of it. And there's this other half of the community that's kind of like wanting it to be the old way, but maybe not for whatever reason, acknowledging that the old way just isn't there anymore. So it kind of comes to this kind of concept of like complaining or like being frustrated or anything else. And so I'm wondering if there's a way that we can kind of better articulate what that sweet spot in the middle is, and maybe some things that people should consider as we continue on this path. Because I think that there is a happy medium, but it kind of has to be a little bit of both sides in order to, I mean, that is the happy medium example. But like, I think that the ways you do that might not be obvious to everyone. So I'd kind of like to have that conversation. Like, how do you see...
Do you want me to go first?
You can go first, or I.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I can go ahead because this is CPC.
PCP.
Oh, my bad.
Kraken.
Kraken.
So the way that I view our current situation is what the new company has done is they have changed. They have gotten off of the mindset that Force of Will is going to go back to what Ryan was talking about. These 300, 400 person tournaments that, 5 stores in your town all carrying the same product. Force of Will, in its current situation, is not going to compete with the big 3. Period. End of story.
Which, disclaimer, that's not necessarily a bad thing because there's lots of games that have just acknowledged that fact and are doing okay.
Yep.
That's important to note.
Understanding that it is not going to compete with the top 3 also puts into perspective how many stores are actually going to carry your product. If you go, I will speak specifically for Fort Wayne, Indiana. If I go to one of my 7 card stores, only 2 of them are carrying Cardfight Vanguard. Not even all of them are carrying Yu-Gi-Oh! Some of them are specialized in Pokemon. All of them dabble in Magic. What a store has done is it will tweak its products based on who is coming into the store to play, right? Force of Will does not have that kind of walking traffic anymore. Okay. So
the majority of areas,
model, yeah. So like if you guys were around with us last year, before the new company took over, there was a big push for what they called WGPs.
WGPQs.
What was it? WGPQ. World Grand Prix qualifiers, which was supposed to be run by the local stores. These local stores were going to kind of take the reign. They were going to take all the profits. They were going to run the tournaments. They were going to do everything. And honestly, there was only 3 stores or 4 stores that actually got the bid. One of them was Fitlana. One of them was over in New York, which had a big following. A lot of our big name players came out of New York. And then Texas, which we know. Arizona. Okay, so the down with Nolan, Bremont, they're not Bremont anymore, but where these clusters of people are, right? And then you can associate that those locals are being held together by those clusters of people. Now, each of those tournaments only brought in like 25 to 30 some people, right?
Yeah, but there were no paid invites, so I think that also mattered a lot, right?
Potentially, but we're talking about going from 30 to maybe 70.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you're talking about now enticing the players that are really like paying the money to travel for all this stuff, right? So essentially what the company has done is they looked at the hard numbers and they said, all right, look, and a lot of TCGs are doing this. It feels like they're going customer direct in terms, okay, but that's because our demand has been accounted for. It's been kind of customer direct, and there is no thought of keeping that product on the shelf for a year. That is kind of what the general print runs are telling you, is that they want all the product to come off the printer and be into your hands, and that's it. Because there are no shelves that are going to stock this. Very few shelves that are going to stock this.
Yeah,
The players that are playing the game
definitely
are going to take it, and that's it, right? So with that in mind, that's kind of why we have these smaller boxes, right? This is a bite-sized product. This is not something that you probably sell a lot of booster packs out of. You know what I mean? This is for a player to buy for $50. Okay, the 36 card pack or the 36 booster pack booster boxes displays, right? Those are to sell booster packs in your store, right? So this was a conscious decision of like understanding what the player base was doing, and then all stores that are currently have as successful locals are selling singles online through their own storefront. Okay. So they have adapted. They know that their player base is not exactly localized where it's at. And all the stores that are carrying Force of Will are passionate about Force of Will.
Yep.
They're not
the
just
ones that are actually like going direct to their distributors, asking for the product and getting it.
And I mean, even in terms of production costs, like putting 24 booster packs in a whole box instead of 36 booster packs in a whole box is more expensive. So there has to be a very conscious effort behind it to even want to make a smaller pack product. And I think that you're absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was all focused. It was all focused on what the market was telling them, and it was the new company that decided that, all right, this is where we're gonna go. And it was like a hard shift from 5 to 2 when DBV was released. Like it was just like, all right, look, this was the demand. This is what you told us. This is what we're gonna print.
Yep.
And it's been the same story ever since. So like, go try to buy AO1 boxes. They're $70-$75 with what few are on the market right now.
Yeah. And I think part of that is I think the nature of that is that it's still manipulatable, but the manipulation has to, like, you have to kind of acknowledge that we as the consumer, we as the direct player, right? We have a lot more influence now than we did in the past, and to the point of like, if it is true, this concept of like straight to direct, then having that conversation with your store, if they're not like actively like competing or anything else like that, to say, look, put in a pre-order for a case, put in a pre-order for, I got 4 guys, we all play together, we all want to chip in together to buy a case. Pre-order a case, get 1 case, it'll sell as soon as it gets here. Like, that kind of messaging, I know that for a long time, and I've harped it for a long time of like, talk to your stores, tell them you want the product, get it. But in the past, there has truly been that concept of like, oh, but it's just going to sit on the shelves. So if we got to order too much, it's going to sit on the shelves and we're not going to sell it. With this market now, our player voice has a lot more power than it did before, because we can speak to the store to say, look, you don't have to worry about it sitting on your shelf. It's a smaller box. I'm committed to buying 3 of them. Like, I will take them. You will. I have these other 2 people who will buy it. Like, you will sell this, and so we can kind of.
So what's going to be interesting?
Go ahead.
To kind of counter that a little bit, the new company has actually taken the hype out of the community voice. Okay, so like, they've actually almost taken an approach of like money talks. If you don't get your pre-order in, they're not printing your boxes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's almost kind of like that's the two-way street of it. Like you have to flex in the form of like, you have to put your money where your mouth is, but the company will meet you there if your money meets your mouth. And like, that's the two-way street that we're kind of walking along. And I think that there are people who aren't quite realizing that your messaging needs to change to adapt to that. And people aren't quite realizing that the type of transaction, the business relationship has changed, and you have to change with it. Like, in a sense, it's more transactional, but it's also more consistent if you're engaged in the transaction. And I think that's the piece, is for the longest time, people be like, oh, well, I hope my store orders some. And then his store doesn't. And then they complain because the store didn't. And it's like, okay, well, did you go into the store and tell them to put you down for 2 boxes? Like, no? Oh, okay, then. But if you go into your store now and say, yeah, put me down for half a case, and then they do, and then they order it, and you pick up your half a case, transaction complete, right? Like you have.
And what's interesting is every store that is currently in the game should not feel at risk by sitting on product, which is interesting, That's super true. Interesting. That is not the way that it used to be. And talking to the Dylans and talking to, you know, the people that I do, like this.
I do have to interrupt you for just 1 second. We'll get to that because we have to go to Mike Rance, who has to give us a very short heavy metal rendition moment of his choice because Brandon Bremont just donated $10. So, Mike Rance, I need some heavy metal from you in some way.
Oh God.
Yes, anything. Can you sing about the economy of Force Will? Just like.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
You need me to like throw together.
Oh my God.
I need 10 seconds of heavy metal. From
10 seconds of heavy metal. All right.
Ready?
$1
and go.
Hold on. Does it need a rhyme?
What? Okay. Does it need to be like full renditions, or can I just headbang for 10 seconds?
I think
we need to come up with a heavy metal like chord for him to sing for us. Just like a quick 4-liner. Hold on.
Give me give me Krusty Krab pizza, but instead replace it with Force of Will. It's like the Force of Will gods, the best gods around.
This is not what we were donated for.
I regret everything. Who would have thought?
Force of Will.
This was. I can't believe this was his.
Okay, well,
$10
Brandon, I'm sorry that you spent $10, but I appreciate the support. Thank you very much.
Why would you do that, Brandon?
We're spicing up this ruler school, y'all.
I do that for free in our group chats.
So
what we need to do is next week we just need to do the rotisserie draft on ruler school, and I'm sure Bremont will agree to that one.
I'm down. Actually, wait. We'll save it for. So I will speak to this. So 2 weeks from now, I should be in the new office. And 2 weeks from now is ruler.
Is number 73.
Is number 73 or 073. So we should do a super spicy, like longer ruler school celebration kind of thing for the 73rd episode. I'll see if I can make that work. That'll be a lot of fun, and maybe we'll get some rotisserie drafting in. But yeah, we'll get to there. But like you were saying, with the boxes, Josh. Like not feeling at risk to sit on products.
Oh yeah. No store right now, I think, would feel uncomfortable buying like an extra couple of cases, which is a fantastic position. I mean, hell, it even got to a point with DBV where like one of our Twitch subs was talking about how he was cold calling stores, like in like a 100-mile radius. Of like he went to the website and was like Force of Will stores and started cold calling people of like, hey, do you happen to have any like DBV boxes on your shelf? And he actually got a couple.
Yeah, Patrick wanted the same thing. He was just looking around for Force of Will product, and then he ended up like literally reaching out to every single store within like his radius and got some decent DBV deals, and then just bought the rest of the Perfect Lokis, Dark Houses, whatever online. And of course, now he has no events, and it's like, you can
that
go
was
check
that was actually
that was probably one of my favorites.
Yeah,
but I think to that point is like I said, our store, Odyssey Games, sponsor of the channel, does buy boxes, and we have players who just buy a pack or two at a time, but we also have people like myself who like I committed to buying a half a case plus a pre-release kit of Alice Origins 3. Like I get some boxes automatically just for having them be the sponsor because they were a contract, but I was also like, I'm also going to put money where my mouth is, and I want to support my store and make it worth their while to continue to buy products, so I'm going to buy some, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then on top of that, like I know that they're going to buy boxes. I know that our local the other day for Alice Origins 1, demand for the product was so high, like even after set release, demand for the product was so high that my store would managed to reach out and buy extra pre-release kits that hadn't been cracked just to get the packs of AO1. Like, product right now is the safest that it has been for a store to pick up, because people will buy it. Like, it's just absolutely purchasable right now. And so I think when you have this kind of trifecta, right, of like product being safe, the company wanting to be kind of in this transactional, put your money where your mouth is, now we need the third piece, is just where players need to start putting their money where their mouth is. And so it takes almost a little bit more of a commitment for players, more of an active commitment and communication than it has in the past. But I think the reward for that is the consistency. Like I said, like if you're putting in the effort, the payout is pretty much guaranteed. Like, and I think the other thing too is to like also be in touch with your store about like, what distributor are you using? Is that distributor being communicative? What are some of the better distributors? Like, some of our distributors are definitely better than others in terms of making sure that Force of Will gets to your shelf, but like, you can find them. And again, putting in that legwork of, if you want to get into the transactions, you absolutely can. Force of Will is a point right now where if you invest to get product, you will get product. And it's also worth it to get product. But you can't be, in order to be the most into the game, in order to be the most able to stay in the game, you have to be front loading. You can't be hunting after release. That's, I think, is the biggest piece right now. Like, if you,
in the current market, yeah. But I
have two
will
things
go
to
on
say,
the record.
if I can chime in.
Go for it.
Go ahead.
Most of this has been economy talk, which is something that my brain has glazed over, and I've thought about kittens and puppies most of this. However, two things. Number one,
They grow up to be dogs and cats.
Do not put your money where your mouth is, because COVID-19 is going on in our country, and it's just money near your mouth is very unsafe.
Money's dirty.
Number two, my experience with buying Force of Will product in my history, and something that doesn't really exist anymore, is I would usually buy a box, maybe two, depending on the set. Back in the day, I would try to scrape together, the pieces of a deck that I thought was going to be good when the meta was still defining itself. And then I would from the box or two that I would buy, I would build a deck that I thought was competitively viable. And I'm a decent enough deck builder where I could, even if I didn't have like what I thought was the best deck, I could say, well, I can go to this like box tournament and play this deck and still do reasonably well. One thing that you don't really have anymore, and I'm wondering like what your guys' opinion on this is, there's no more tournaments to get product. And that was actually like a major source of how I personally got my product as a competitive player and as a grinder.
Winner boxes and stuff.
I'm not trying to spend enough money to like get a case or even half a case. I only ever bought 2 boxes. I think I bought 3 boxes one time when a set came out, but then I would take what I got. I would buy a couple of singles or trade with my friends here and there to just get what I needed to build my one deck. And then for the rest of my product, and I would complete play sets and I would build other decks. And as the format evolved, I would have what I needed. Obviously now, Jeremy, I borrow from you more than anything else when I go to tournaments. Yeah. But that's because like back in the day, I would get cards and then I would play to get more cards, and that just doesn't exist anymore. So how do you think that has kind of shaped how players acquire cards? I don't know if I'm a minority. That's how I did it in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because Yu-Gi-Oh! Was super box tournament heavy, but yeah, it's just
I think what you're talking about is the credence of the times in the sense of like we're saying those kinds of tournaments were easier to pull off because the production of product was different. And
not only that, you had a locals.
True.
Well, but I mean, even at like,
I would still like drive down to like Billy's store for like a 1K, and like even if you just had like a case tournament or whatever, just like if he was giving away product instead of cash, it was like, well, you're giving away more product than cash, and I still want product, and I just would not spend the cash on that product. So that was still good for me.
And I think the part of that is I think that we can get back to those kinds of things, but I think it's kind of the natural next evolution of what we're talking about in terms of the transactional nature of getting product right now, in the sense of like once a store feels comfortable, once a store starts to really feel that like, oh hey, my product isn't sitting on the shelves anymore, people are picking it up as soon as it comes off, people are talking about they want to commit to it, maybe then you can talk to a store about like, hey, what if you pick up an extra like half case, or like not open up all the packs for singles, like if you are providing singles, or like if you reserve half your case out of your pre-order to throw some box tournaments for $20 entry. Like, we've got players here who are willing to put money down to buy products, means they're probably willing to play for more products. But like, it's kind of that like we have to rebuild that network, because right now to do something like that would require stretching and putting that initial investment in for the store. And so like we can get back there, I think. But the first step, I think, to that is players recognizing the need to front end things. I think what you're talking about now, and I think that's one of the things that I'm most interested to see about AO3, that we don't have starter decks, is that it's these buy-up box rulers instead. Does this mean we're going to see more boxes, just straight boxes sold? Does this mean that people are going to be buying a box and a half because they cracked the ruler they wanted and they didn't get necessarily the support they wanted, so now the store is starting to sell single packs more as that person hunts down the support for that particular ruler? Like Prisia, if you really wanted to, Alice Origins 2, like you could do exactly what you're talking about in terms of you buy a Prisia, a structure deck, you buy some single packs to kind of maybe flush it out or get some trade bait to get some other stuff, and then you play in your locals every week to maybe earn a pack or two or whatever, or you pick up some singles online, you're done, right? Because Prisia came with all the cards that you needed, at least to be able to start playing it. Now we're going to start seeing like, yeah, you got the ruler, but did your box have the support that you needed to fully flush them out? Or are you going to have to do kind of what you're talking about? You got a Arla, for example, and your deck has like most of an Arla deck, but maybe it's not like the most optimal, and you got to bring in some older cards and everything else.
You're already losing me, because if you're building an Arla deck, you're already probably going to bottom for that tournament.
This is an example, Ryan.
This is a terrible example
of what you're talking about in terms of like build a deck with what you have and then play to get more. I think that with AO3, we're going to see what that potential. We're going to see what that potential is, and so it'll be interesting, I think, to see what comes out of it.
Honestly, the stores need to open back up, because like we didn't have a lot of time. We didn't have a lot of time till COVID-19 hit with the new company, right?
No.
Like we were just ramping up, and like Vegas was like the first. You know what I mean?
Vegas was pretty big, actually. I was surprised with the turnout.
Like we were gonna go places. Like you guys have no idea we were gonna go places.
And then oops, haha, global pandemic.
Like no idea. But like these
not be worse.
Like these, with the price point that they are, actually stores would have a lot easier time doing.
Yeah, they're very
box tournament with these.
Like
right?
I could eat a couple of those for dinner or something. I don't know.
I would love to do a box tournament for Ghost in the Shell. That'd
like buy a box or win a box tournaments used to be what, like it was like $20,
$20 entry
or something like that. But like you wouldn't do a $20 buy a box entry for this. This is a $50 product.
Yeah.
So like you half that. It's like maybe a $10 buy a box. You know.
Maybe
like,
15 extra promos and shit, whatever people
I mean, whatever your thing is, but like these are more manageable. You have more of these, right? Like a case is now 8 of these instead of 6, right? Like, so it is actually like buy box tournaments would be a very good thing in the new. But going with the business model, there are a good amount of Force of Will players that don't have locals, that are just playing with a group of friends or relying very heavily on the online platforms with Untap and the OLS to stay competitive till the GPs, or to stay playing Force of Will until the GPs come.
That's right. Because I literally haven't been able to play. I joined in for the Wanderer OLS 26. I'm on for the 27th, and now that Ghost in the Shell's legal, I get to just meme because we have the trial plans. So,
so like that's essentially like all of these like we have GPs, right? But then without any like really big locals, the box tournaments, the 1Ks, like the reason why you don't have 1Ks at Billy Buttons anymore is because Billy Buttons stopped doing Force of Will, right? Like,
but he's getting back.
He's gonna be getting back.
Boys back. Ryan's still muted.
Like there's
Ryan's still muted.
I muted someone right. He did like move across the country to like sell drugs or something, but now he's like back in the East Coast area, and I think
he was a legitimate business. He was a legitimate businessman. Let's not make it sound shady when he moved to the country.
We can make it sound whatever we want. I don't know.
It was legitimate business, not.
But I would like to go on and say like we've put a lot of emphasis in getting in your pre-orders and all of that too. But there is actually a second phase. I'm not going to say that Force of Will is now only designed for the people that buy boxes and tell you 3 months in advance. That's not the case. There's still a handful of people that do mass box openings. I'm actually going to be talking to Billy Buttons about this in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, we're going to talk mass box openings on our podcast for finance. But there are a handful of them that still exist. And so what will end up happening is as the sets release, as you buy singles from these people that are doing the mass box openings, they will keep upping their quantities and upping their risk as they are selling out of these mass box openings. So that number will constantly increase. So like if you never pre-order a box for yourself, but if you are religiously buying singles, then your numbers are being told. Okay.
Yes, for sure.
But what we're saying is that you are being a lag at that point, right? Like you won't be seen for like a couple set releases essentially. And you're relying on somebody else to account for your numbers based on the risk that they feel, you know. But you can also do your part. Just by buying Force of Will cards, your demand will be wrapped up somewhere. Whether it's 6 months in the numbers, 3 months in the numbers, whether it's in somebody's
numbers. Gotta up those numbers.
What do they mean? The numbers.
But yeah, no, you're accounted for. Even the Ryan Miles of the world, who only like contribute rarely to anything financially.
Anything. And to winning.
So you contribute to the opposite of people wanting.
I'm here to take your money, not give you mine. All right, this is I'm running a sham operation here.
I think I think to kind of close it out is just even in the midst of all of what is going on in the world, like it's kind of a meme, but like get in the numbers, like make sure that your number is there in some way, shape, or form, like plan for it, because I think that is going to be the investment that I think is going to pay out the best for you in a lot of different ways. And I think that it really is about, I think in the past year or so, there's been a lot of passiveness, and I think it is time to kind of shift gears to being active, active in whatever it is, but just like get active in making sure that you're accounted for. And I think that that's going to be what you need to do. I think that we're in for physical. Yeah, physical. Have you packed any good cards,
dude? I'm trying to get this secret, man. I've got one box and like 1.5 boxes, and I didn't crack the secret yet. I was trying so hard.
So, but anyway, that is going to do it as for us tonight. We will be back next week. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. It was awesome to be able to have you all in the chat. It was very active. Appreciate that. Be sure to leave us some suggestions about what you might want to talk about, have us talk about next week, and then also maybe leave us some suggestions for what we're going to do for episode 73.
Episode 073.
Episode 073. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will Jeremy bust out the gloves?Maybe I'll bring back the gloves for that episode.
I need to get gloves for this episode. I got 2 weeks.
I'll take some gloves.
If you can, what kind of gloves are they? Send me on Amazon.
Do we all need gloves?
We all need
mass produce. I'm gonna mass produce the gloves so that we can all wear them. There we go.
We need to get like everyone who's ever been on roller school on here. We need Bremont, we need Frank, we need my brother, we need Jeff, we need the guy who did Tenshoku like 2 weeks ago.
Everybody, we need to
Derek
get
did this podcast once or twice, right?
Yeah,
Derek,
we'll get everybody.
familiar?
Will have a pair of the gloves.
Yeah.
Every single
Wait,
person.
what if I just get like oven mitts?
Yeah, just the glove cast. We'll just call it the glove
I was
cast.
on here one time. Get her on here.
Man. So
Glove latch.
that'll be us. Will Jeremy shill some more? Find out on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes. But anyway, that is it for us for tonight. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, this has been DMO73, Jeremy Franklin, and I have been joined by Ryan Miles.
My headset got in the way. Oh God!
Josh Patton.
You won't be able to end the stream before I actually get my shirt off.
Ryan Miles is no longer in my locals.
And Mike Grant.
Yay.
Saying class dismissed. Have a good night, everybody.
Follow